Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Integrative You Radio. For those of you joining us on YouTube, you are now literally the lighting in front of me was perfect and now I'm being blinded by the sun. So here we are. But we're gonna roll with it until it makes my eyes hurt. We have Dr. Nick here and we're talking about a little bit about our experience in moving to Italy, but just a different perspective on it. And primarily it was stimulated by actually a social media post that I saw, and honestly, a bit of my personal experience on social media. But for those of you that know her or don't, Lori Harder, she's a I don't want to call her an influencer. She does have a big following, but she does a lot of business coaching with her husband, and she puts a lot of really great content out there when it comes to business development, personal development. And I sent her a DM just being like, "Hey girl, I feel you," because she posted something saying, "Hey guys, I've been looking at my stats here, and the most engagement that I'm getting is when I post about my clothing or fashion." And I was laughing because we have a similar experience when we're looking at the statistics of our social media is, we pour our heart and soul into this amazing content and podcast, etc. And it's usually when we post different things about Quentin, we post food that we eat here in
I
Italy.
was gonna say
Oh,
100% food, but I mean, it's
and the
also
sites.
Italian food. So,
And it was just very funny because she's just like, "Listen, I hear you. I'm gonna now blend my fashion passion with with amazing content so I can give you both benefits." And, as content producers, we can look at this from two different perspectives. Like, we can look at this from the glass half empty and say, oh gosh, people don't care about in-depth topics. They just care about, fashion and superficial desires and beauty and glamorous events. I know, listen, I'm saying this very vulnerably because in the past that would have been my response of like, people don't care about their health. They just care about, things. And really, at the end of the day, Nick and I started having a conversation about this. And what we realized, and this is partly stems from our move to Italy, is that the things that people are engaging with on social platforms are depictions or real life captures of people living, just like
or,
living
or the
life.
assumption, yeah, it's going to give them the feeling of living.
Yeah.
It was interesting when you said that, and I like stopped and think, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense because people, you know, it doesn't matter if you're anytime that you're not experiencing like being in the moment, it's you want to experience being in the moment. And most of the time, we're not in the moment because we're judging the past or, wanting, desiring something in the future. So when we're scrolling mindlessly through the social media, it's like unconsciously, that's what we're trying to do. It's like we're trying to experience living in the moment while not being in the moment. As funny as that sounds.
It's funny because our very good friend Bailey was here, and you probably have no idea what direction I'm going with this right now. But Bailey loves to tell the story of how I finally told her, like, I don't even know, maybe a month or a couple of months in to our friendship, that I told her when I first met her I didn't like her. She loves to tell everyone that story. And I bring this up primarily because the reason why I didn't like, quote unquote, like her when I first met her is because she came into our office. We were networking, just meeting each other as entrepreneurs in the New Jersey area. And she was talking about she just got back from California, and she talked a little bit about how she does a lot of traveling. She splits time in three different places through the year and this and that. And in that moment in my life, we both were in it together, but we had a business, we had a brick and mortar, there was a lack of freedom for many different reasons, but partly because, we had this business, we were growing a business, we had bills to pay and whatnot. And I bring this up primarily because when we scroll on social media, we need to get out we need to get away from that train of thinking of, oh, good for you with that. I can't afford those clothes. I can't afford to travel. I don't have time to travel. I can't travel. I have 4 kids. We could play that game and turn the desire into a void, like a deficit, or we can look at it and say, wow, this is a feedback mechanism to show me the parts of me or the parts of life that I'm suppressing because I quote unquote have things to do and bills to pay and a job to have.
Well, and I would say it's not necessarily a bad thing looking at it as everything's half truth because it shows awareness, which is amazing. But I think the sad truth of it is like how many times do we have to go through getting that awareness to make a change? Because we're like, oh, let's escape to this. This is going to make my life better. Whether it's a true thing that, I should turn that into a goal and stop putting my time on social media and actually start achieving the micro steps to achieve this goal. I got that awareness initially from, a lack of sensation through social media, or is it just, I'm escaping to get this dopamine detachment? And, anything that we understand through that psychosomatic model, it's like if you're detaching from your life, well, you're just telling yourself that you don't love yourself enough to be in it. So you're going to do something to detach from it.
Mhm.
And that has a lot of negative side effects.
Well, I think that goes back to the phrase, if you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. And, it comes down to if we're scrolling and we are attracted to the fashion. And you have to ask yourself, are you attracted to the fashion because you want to uh you want to have certain clothes that quote unquote make you viewed that you have a specific status, or do you like fashion because that would get you up and get you out of your house, get you feeling confident to go out and have conversations and network and engage and dance on a bar? I don't know. Are you attracted to food, but you're more so attracted to food from different cultures? And it's because at the root of it, you really want to travel, you want to experience different places and experience, different forms of dining. I think that's one of the things that we were attracted to in Italy. It wasn't about just the food, it was about the experience of the food. And, when you're navigating, you can either it's exactly what you're saying. I'm just saying it in a different way, is you can there and say, good for them. I wish I could do that and further that scarcity. Or you can say, I'm going to make that happen because anything is possible. We can play the game of, well, it's really hard to travel with kids. There are families that's what they do. There's a whole, if you go in and type it into social media, there are traveling families. They're traveling, some of them are traveling with up to 5 kids, 6 kids, and like that's their lifestyle. So it's all possible, but it's really just a matter of, are you going to take the action steps in order to bring it to life? And and obviously you bring it to life if it's a big enough want, desire, or even void, I guess you can say. So it's like we need to stop putting these limitations on ourselves of, I can't, because what the fuck are you waiting for? We
Well,
did
I'd
a
say the other,
podcast about the people that retire, that they say, "Oh, I'm waiting till I retire," and then they get sick or they die. The statistics are crazy with that.
I think one of the biggest things that holds us back from the can is um, pertaining to social media is going through and it's like, well, I could do that and I can do that and I can do that. And you can doing something, but not doing something pretty much strengthens the opposite side as well of you not being able to do something. And if you could do those things, the only reason you're not is because it's actually not in alignment for you. Otherwise, you'd be doing it. So then you look at, okay, well, I'm not doing something. I said I could be doing something, but that's actually creating the brakes on what I should be doing, but I'm not.
Yes. Should and want are two very, very different things. But, you know, kind of circling this back to the bigger picture of what we're talking about, of this idea of living, you know, this is piggybacking off of the should and the wants and the have tos, is so many of us, and us as well, we're speaking about ourselves in this context, is not only were we living a life of doing slash achieving, but that's what we felt like we had to do. Like that was the normal, I don't know about the audience, but I didn't really grow up with language or dialogue that life is about living and fun and enjoyment and pleasure and experience. Like, I grew up with the mindset that life is hard, life is a struggle, and you have to do things that you don't always want to do because that's what life is. We're
Sounds like
millennials.
something I want to sign up for.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this a little bit too,
I'll take two of those, please. I think put me down for two.
Well, we were talking about the divide of, we're millennials, our parents were boomers, and we were talking about the Gen Zers in a previous podcast, and we were talking about the divide because the hustle, work your 9 to 5, get your pension and get your retirement, and like that was so polarized, and it created a lot of unhappy, unhealthy people that the Gen Zers just watched and they go, I'm not fucking doing that. Like, no, I'm good. And
The Gen
especially
Zers remind me of the scene of Sandra Bullock in The Heat when she flips off and all the cops. And she's like, "Jerks, you're just a bunch of
jerks, you shit jerks."
jerks."
Love that movie.
Oh my God.
But yeah, but it's just, I'm not saying the Gen Zers have it figured out by any means, but I think that they're
No.
they're leveraging these online platforms like YouTube and social media and TikTok. They want to be influencers because they want freedom, and they want to be able to not just dedicate their whole lives to working, they actually want to live. I'm not saying if you ask the general Gen Zer, that's the exact verbiage coming out of their mouth. But if you look at the big picture, the grand scheme of things, that's really what it comes down to. And, since we've moved to Italy, of course, we have so many people reach out to us of like, you're my inspiration. I've wanted to do that. It's on my list. I'm going to make it happen in 10 years. And people are saying these things. And again, it goes back to that desire of, I want to live. I want to experience. I'm tired of just doing and going and never ending to-do lists.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you have to move, across the world to achieve that. But if that's in alignment with you as well as with the family, then yeah, like when you look at families, big families, any families that travel, they go through pain. We all go through pain. But the only reason they're doing it is because that pain isn't bigger than the joy they get out of traveling.
Mhm.
So, and that joy is because that's serving the family's values and the parents' values. So, if traveling isn't connected to a high value, or what you get out of traveling isn't connected to a high value, and you go travel with a family because that's what you're supposed to do, etc., well, it's not going to be worth it. There's going to be a lot of pain. So it's not just scrolling through and like, oh my God, that looks like it would be amazing. Reground yourself and be like, well, this could be and looks like it's just a picture. God knows what's really happening. But this looks like they're living an authentic, great life. Awesome. We can still feel that joy through them, which is also awesome. But that doesn't mean we should make that how we create our joy. And I
Yeah.
think that's a big misunderstanding for people is like, oh, that's how they receive joy. I've been taught if I want to receive joy, just do what somebody else does. Well, yeah, you could do that in a business to make money, et cetera, but that's still wrong based on our philosophy because your business is just a representation of you. So if you're creating a business built off of how somebody else created it, it's probably not going to be in alignment with your vision. Different story. But
No, I think it's relevant for sure.
raising a family is the same way. It's just like look how maybe somebody created and achieved that authentic alignment and they're expressing themselves and they're, grateful more times than not. Like, what did they do to achieve that? Don't do the same things. You're a different person.
Hmm. But there's also the what you're talking about, this idea of making big bold decisions that are aligned. The foundation that we use is knowing our values, and then we brought it together to know our family's values. And so when you have that data point, you can make big bold decisions like we did moving to Italy, because you're able to know, wow, okay, these are the values that I have, these are the values you have, these are the values of the family, and you can evaluate different places and different environments and different cultures to see what matches up. and and then it makes a big bold
And
decision more
listen
of
to
a
the universe
confident decision.
because not all struggles created the same, but usually when you're in alignment, the universe is going to give you an easier path.
Yes, and
And
signs, opportunities.
yeah,
But you can't go into any of this with the idea that it's one-sided. You know, we would have really been disappointed if we thought we're just going to move to Italy, because this is definitely a theme on social media, because of course now I'm in the algorithm, all of these Italian accounts, and the accounts are showing like everything. The scenery is amazing, the sea is amazing, the food is amazing, the people are amazing. They just show all of the really, really good sides of Italy. And don't get me wrong, Italy's fantastic. But if we were to think that we were going to come here and everything was going to be smooth, we would have set ourselves up for pretty big disappointment. Navigating our visas has not been easy. Navigating language has not been easy. Just navigating how to find fucking fabric softener in the grocery store was super hard in the first month. Like, you're in a grocery store, you're like, I don't know what any of this means. Is this for the dishwasher or is this for the toilet? Like, I don't know. Nick still messes stuff up. I was washing the
it,
laundry with
I get
pavamente, which is
humbled
for the
quite often.
floor.
I get humbled quite often here.
So, there are things that you don't think about in your native culture, because you know the language, because you know the customs, because you know what a grocery store has to offer. You go to other places in the world and it's completely different. That, like, you don't there are no superstores. There's no Walmart. There's nothing like that. So anyway, the point that we're making here is that, sometimes if you feel unsettled, it's and you're looking through social media and you start to feel kind of like shit, because you're just like, oh, that would be nice. I wish I could afford those clothes. Oh, I wish I could travel. Oh, that would be nice. I've never been overseas in my life. Like, if you're playing that game, like, take the step back. How do you always say it? Um, like, get the
Well,
subjectivity out, be objective, like, look at it as a scientist.
ask ask a question first because that's what all scientists do is just ask questions. But asking a question takes you out of the limbic system of being reactive into the forebrain where you process answering questions. So I always say, actually, I say, well, this is interesting. Um, and that's just a pause. It's not really a question, but that gives me a moment to set up a very healthy question. So you can just ask a question. I usually just say this is interesting because that creates a pause for me to ask a specific question.
Yeah. And it allows you to ask the questions to get better insight. This isn't just, oh, this isn't for you. You're not meant to have this. You're being attracted to something and you're telling yourself that you can't have it because you have too much shit to do. You're too busy, you have too much on your plate, you have a job, you have kids, you have a family, you have this and that. And going back to this idea of the values, this can sound horrible to some people, but I'm going to just go there anyway because this is real, raw, and vulnerable. But, Nick and I looked at our values and we looked at also on the flip side, like some of the things that I probably did this more than Nick, but some of the things that stressed me out in the US. Like I was so sick of having to overthink about food. I was so sick of feeling stressed by like I love going out to dinner, but it was like stressful because I knew I was going to be swollen. I knew my stomach was going to hurt. I knew it was going to feel like crap. And but I did it anyway because I wanted the experience and I wanted to have quality conversations with friends. And so there were certain things that were taking my energy and then there were certain things that I desired. When I was looking on social media, when we talk about these like triggers or where you find yourself playing that guilt, shame, or comparison game, I was looking at people that were traveling and thinking like getting mad, like why am I doing that? I don't have that freedom right now. And so looking at my values, some of them include experience. It includes quality conversations. It includes fun in nature, expansive experiences or expansive adventures. And I started realizing after visiting Italy that there was a lot of my values that would be fulfilled. And as much as I value family, I left behind family, mom, dad, sister, brother. And, if for those that go ahead and do their values, if your highest value or one of your highest is not just your immediate family, but your extended family, picking up and moving to another country might not feel good, even though it checks off other boxes. And, when we came here, our it's still in progress, but our thought is how can we set our lives up here so that it's an open door for family to come? So it's not that we're abandoning that part, it's important to us, but we knew that we could be the best versions of ourselves and do the best for our kids if we were living in our values.
Yeah, you just try to constantly look at what's going to create the best environment for you. And, I think nothing is just bad or just good. It's how you use it. I always say like, guns don't kill people. It's the user behind it. Social media can provide great things. It can provide a lot of awareness of what's going on in the world that we don't see, both the good and the bad, based on what platform and what algorithms creating that platform. Um, but yeah, I would say, you know, it's always a higher level of awareness, higher level of living, um, to create your transitions. And I think this might be the last part of this little conversation of social media, is that if you want to use it, but have an intent of your transition going into it. Like before you even pick up your phone, your tablet, whatever you're using, like have an intent of really what you're trying to discover, what you're trying to use. And
Hmm.
then, it sounds funny, but set a time limit, but not on a phone, not on a computer. Just be like, I'm going to spend 15 minutes. I'm going to spend 5 minutes. I'm going to spend just say it out loud, set it to yourself, and energetically they'll be there and they'll like you'll have some type of clue or feeling saying like I'm good. I don't need any more. If you continue after that, well, there's a shame on you and a shame on me aspect to it. You know, you can overindulge in anything. So have an
Yeah.
intent, get clarity of what you want to receive out of it, uh, and then hopefully that algorithm working for you.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say is just thinking about what is going to promote more energy and inspiration opposed to detract it. If you're a business owner and you're looking at other businesses, the question I would always ask is, is this providing value or is this actually detracting me from my uniqueness factor? The whole book that was written about the blue zones, or not blue zones, I'm sorry, blue ocean versus red ocean. Are you going to put yourself in the saturated ocean where you look like a different version of what everybody else is doing? Or are you going to strive to be the most unique, bold in your market? And that is something that I think that a lot of us entrepreneurs can get really caught up with. And the same thing goes for all of these other aspects that we're talking about. Is social media, if it is detracting energy, then go ahead and use the tools in this podcast, ask the questions, and try to decipher what the feedback is and how it can then be transferred to more inspirational aligned action, because it is telling you something. So I think that this is a huge topic because social media can either create opportunity or it could be a huge distraction and detraction. All right,
Boom.
guys. See you next time.